Hello, you are listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira.
Hi, I'm Tammy.
And I'm Thomas.
And today we are talking about a very common problem in co-parenting situations.
Right.
Which is that people frequently put their children in the middle.
Well, that's because their legs are so short. They can ride in the middle.
And, you know, most of the time, I don't really think it's intentional. I think people just don't realize most of the time that they're doing it. I mean, I think we do have parents that intentionally sometimes try to go through the children for messages and different things, but I don't think even then that they often realize the damage that does to the children in the co-parenting situation.
Well, I would be the first one to confess that when I was going through this, I desperately wanted the kids to take my side.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of human nature. It's something that nobody admits to, of course.
Right.
Because, but we all want a little bit of vindication, and it's tempting to say things to the kids that are going to align them with you.
Very true. Yeah. Very, very true. So this has come up a lot for me in cases in the last couple weeks, not only on Thomas's litigation stuff, but on some of my coaching clients. And so I just kind of want to talk through maybe some examples and scenarios and things that we commonly see so that we can maybe kind of help you see this more from your kid's perspective and how it's creating this situation.
I would just, before you get started on that, as a preference, from a legal standpoint, you really don't want to do this.
Yeah, the courts frown on it.
Yeah, it's something that, the best interest of the child, most of our judges are convinced that it's not a good idea to lobby the children or to try to influence them or align them with you, and to do so. Well, we even have orders in the standard language
mm-hmm.
in there from Family Court Services. We have orders not to do that.
Right, in California.
Right.
Yeah. And so, I think that this gets a little harder to manage as the kids get older because they get to be that like 15, 16, 17 where they're kind of managing their own schedules more and more, and you want to put some of that on them as adults, but you have to be really careful because you don't want the communication to be going through them so much that they're able to manipulate between the two parents, because that's a lot. That's how it kind of in the beginning, I think when they're young, it's kind of the parent manipulating the child in a lot of ways when the children are put in the middle. But I think later on, it allows the teenagers to manipulate the parents if they're put in the middle. And so, if you have a good working relationship by the time they're teenagers.
Do not let your teenagers put their parents in the middle.
Right. And so you can, I do this a lot with Thomas's ex-wife is, kind of close the gap on, what everybody's doing and, how we're going back and forth between the two homes and all that kind of stuff at this point. But when they're young, I think that's when the strong tendency that you talked about is there of like wanting them to like you better.
Yes.
I think I agree with Thomas. I think that's a very common, feeling that we all have, and I don't think a lot of us would admit to it, but it is something that we want. And so I think a lot of times that we're doing things in such a way that we think is going to accomplish that goal, but actually it's completely the opposite.
Right.
So I don't know if you have any examples in mind, but I'm going to share mine.
I'm going to use your examples.
You're going to let me come up with all the examples?
I will have comments.
I have like 3, I think, in my head from the past few weeks. But so recently I had somebody who went and picked up their child and then had the child text the other parent that they had picked them up. Now, in this situation, the orders are pretty loose, and it always kind of depends on how specific your orders are. We always say the more conflict you have, the more specific orders you need. So in this particular situation, the child's maybe, I don't know, I think about 10, 11, something like that. And so, I said to the parent, you cannot have the child text the other parent to let them know that you picked them up.
Mhm.
That is a conversation that should be going between you and the other parent.
Right, right.
Because what happens is now that child's like caught in the middle. And I think there wasn't, from the other parent's perspective, there wasn't good communication about the fact that the children were going to be picked up at the time that they were. And so now you've got this child who is, having to text the other parent, knowing, the child kind of knew based on, what was said to the other parent, that the other parent was kind of unaware of what time they were being picked up or whatever. And so it just really creates this situation, because you have to think from the child's perspective. Okay, I'm with one parent, and this parent is giving me instructions to communicate this to the other parent.
Yeah.
So I don't want to disappoint that parent, because I want to do, most children, I think, want to do what their parents want them to do until they get to be about 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And
then they want to do the opposite.
Yes. And so they want to, communicate with the other parent like they're being told to. But then at the same time, they know that they're upsetting that other parent by communicating that particular message, because they're aware enough of what the situation is. And one of the reasons they're aware of the situation is because they're being asked to communicate these messages.
Right. And part of it, what may be driving it, is that you don't really want to talk to that other parent.
That's right. That's right. It's a lot easier to tell your kid to talk to the other parent than for you to deal with them. And I think that's
because you have a relationship with the kid that allows you to tell them to do that.
Right.
Whereas you may have received, I don't know, some hostility the last time you spoke with the other parent.
Right. And, I think that especially early on, that is something that we commonly see.
Yeah.
So, it is not good for the child, and it creates problems from the perspective of not only that child being in a loyalty bind where they don't know who to make happy, mom or dad, and they can't do both at the same time. So you're putting them in a no-win situation. And then the second piece of it is that you're sort of putting them in a power situation.
Right. Yeah.
A control situation that can allow them to potentially manipulate one of the parents.
Correct.
Or both.
Yeah.
And so the tail starts wagging the dog, as I like to say, which is never good, because you lose control.
Yeah, I was listening to the Dennis Prager show the other day, and he was talking about his father. That is Dennis Prager. His father passed away a few years ago, but he used to have him on the show every year on his birthday. And he said, or Dennis Prager asked his father, what is the big difference that you see in households between when you were raising kids and now? And without any hesitation, Prager Sr. said, when I was young, parents were in charge of the family.
Right.
And now kids are in charge of the family.
Right. Right. And I think that we've seen that true across society.
Yeah.
Right. And so and it's a problem. And it's even more so a problem when the parents aren't united.
That's right. And when you're in a divorce situation, the court ultimately is in charge of your parenting.
Right. Right.
And so it takes away that parental control. But I find that the court is going to favor the parent that acts like a parent and exercises their authority instead of being, because the reason why we hesitate to tell our kids what to do is because they may want to be with the other parent more.
Right. We fear that discipline will cause them to want to go to the other household.
But the court wants you to be the parent.
Well, and I find that children are actually drawn to the person that's actually willing to be the parent.
Yes.
Usually, because that's the household that has more structure, and structure is what creates security for kids, even though they don't know it.
Right.
And so I find that the looser households are actually not what the child is usually attracted to.
Right, but everybody thinks they are. I
Right.
mean, there's a certain visceral level where a parent actually becomes afraid of that child and
Right.
afraid of what they're going to say to the other parent
Right.
that's going to land them in hot water.
Right.
And this gives the child this power to play the parents off against each other.
Right.
So, for example, when I was co-parenting, I shouldn't say this because we've got one of the kids helping to produce the podcast
Yeah,
today.
but they're basically adults.
They're
you're
basically adults, but when they were little, they tried this thing. Well, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. I'm going to mom's.
right.
I want to go to mom's. And my answer is no.
Right. It's our parenting time.
It's you go up to your room and serve your time out, whatever it is.
Well, and same thing when they're in mom's world, right? If they ever called us and said, well, we want to come because we're mad at mom, our answer is no.
Right.
No, you're not coming here because you got disciplined in mom's world. And actually, as much as we could, if there was discipline in mom's world, we tried to carry it over into our world.
Right.
Because what happens is, as that child gets older, again, you're going to lose complete control.
Yeah.
That child is going to be running the show if you indulge, so it's real easy when the child calls and is like, I'm upset with the parent I'm with. Can you come get me? Right. And I think a lot of parents are like, oh, sure, no problem. I'll come get you. Because they feel like that's taking care of their child. I don't think they mean it maliciously. They just believe that that's taking care of their child or protecting their child or whatever. But in all actuality, we usually see that when the children are younger. And I'm telling you, by the time you have a 15-year-old and you've been doing that,
right.
You have no control. Neither household will have any control.
Yeah. Well, if you're willing to come get them, that does put them in the driver's seat as far as, and part of the thing you want to teach your kids is that relationships are in part your responsibility. It's your responsibility to have a relationship with dad. Now, I'm not talking about abuse. Abuse is something that is completely
they're being
off the
harmed
table.
or
But in a way, that's their relationship with their father.
Right.
And you need to step back and let that happen.
Right. And let me just clarify, when Thomas says abuse, I mean, we're talking about something you would call CPS over. Okay. No food to eat, burns or bruises or marks on them. We're not talking about what we very, very commonly hear from moms is that dad is verbally and emotionally abusive. And you know what? I'll be the first to tell you that I know that's true a lot of times. I had an ex-husband that was both verbally and emotionally abusive.
Stepmothers often
to me and
verbally
the
and
kids.
emotionally abusive.
I think I resent that as a stepmother. But we're not talking about verbal and emotional abuse because unfortunately that is something that the courts are just ill-equipped to handle. There's just no, and for the courts the question becomes, well, verbal and emotional abuse versus the relationship with the parent and that parent's parental rights. You can't override somebody's parental rights over verbal and emotional abuse, unfortunately. But if they're bruising their child or beating them, or, gosh, I saw this article recently where this little boy had been put into foster care because it was his stepfather and his mom didn't stop it, but he was malnourished, he was deprived of food, he was kept like in a some sort of I want to say cage like mechanism in the basement or something, and he had marks on him.
I never thought of that.
And I think somebody at a restaurant, it was an article about the person at the restaurant had slipped him a note or something, the server, and said, do you need help? And the parents actually were both prosecuted because mom didn't stop it, and so she didn't protect her child. Right. So, that's a whole different can of worms. We're not talking about that, but that's not the situation for the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people often just don't like what's happening in the other house. Right. And that doesn't necessarily constitute abuse. And historically, we see dads be more disciplined than moms.
Right. So you want to use your parental authority to direct the child to support the other parent, right? In some ways. But what if you disagree with them?
Well, and we've had this situation too, where, one parent thinks that rule A, B, C, or D should be the same in the other house. Yeah. And you just, you have to understand after divorce that there's certain aspects that you just don't get to control. So what happens in the other world happens in that world. And unless it constitutes abuse that CPS would go in, and when I say CPS, I mean Child Protective Services, different places call it different things, child welfare, different things like that. But unless it would constitute child welfare going in and pulling the kids, then you don't get to control it. Dad lets them eat more sugar on his time. So sorry, mom lets them stay up later than you would.
Yeah.
Those types of things are just things that each parent gets the ability to control within their household.
Yeah. But what happens is that Junior goes back to dad and says, Mom has no rules in her house.
Right.
And
at mommy's, I get to stay up till 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Mommy's, I get to eat sugar, whereas here I have to eat oatmeal and
broccoli.
Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
We had Brussels sprouts last night.
We did.
At a very nice restaurant.
Yes, they were very tasty Brussels sprouts.
Yes. I think that Brussels sprouts get a bad rap. They really do.
That's a topic for another podcast.
That's a topic for we're going to do a podcast called the Brussels sprouts really get a bad rap. But the idea is that when that child is complaining about the other world, what they're not really acting in either parent's interest. They have their own interests.
Right.
And they're trying to weasel, because children are like adults in that they're basically wicked.
They're little evil humans.
They're little
we're selfish.
Conniving. Yeah.
We're naturally selfish, right? That's how we're born. And so until you get to be an adult and you learn how to actively control that selfishness.
Yeah. The heart of man is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. I wish I had the verse, the site. I believe that's from the prophet Jeremiah. But it's true. I mean, why do we have war, and why do people get divorced so much?
Right.
Why can't we all just, in the words of Rodney King, why can't we all just get along?
Right.
And the reason is because we put number one first. Right. And the kids are no different.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you know this? That reminded me. I read a little. I don't know. I was looking up some stats or something today, and I came across something that said over the age of 50, the divorce rate doubles.
Was that true?
That's what it said.
Shoot, because we're both over 50.
I know. That's sad news.
So is this your way of telling me something that I?
No, yesterday was our anniversary.
It was.
We're doing fine.
But it was our 13th anniversary, which is not a lucky anniversary. Well,
maybe it is a lucky anniversary.
That's right. It could be.
Not as far as I made it the first time, but we're almost there. But I think that the biggest thing to understand about this is just like the tendency to want to do this when they're young, and part of what you're satisfying is your own desire, and then what happens is they become teenagers and it's flipped on you, and then it's out of control and suffering. So do you have an example? You want me to give another one?
No.
Oh, okay.
My comment is that it's tricky because it's really important to build relationship.
Right.
Because without relationship, you can have all the rules in the world. They're just not going to listen to you.
Right.
You have to build the relationship. And building relationships not the same thing as commiserating with the child about the other world.
Right.
That's not how the way you do it is you are there for them. You fix boo-boos, you do some fun stuff, you have some traditions, and you help with homework, and you make them do their own laundry.
That's a whole nother podcast topic too. But making children do their own laundry, we should do a topic on that.
Yeah.
But the person that I was talking to recently, one of the people said, well, it was a dad, and he said, well, there's all these things wrong in mom's world. It's reaches a level of uncleanliness that I think is unacceptable. I don't think there's adequate food in the house. I don't think, I think that, the step parent is disciplining, and I don't like that. And, just this whole list of all these issues at mom's house. And my answer to that was, well, you don't solve those problems by attacking mom over them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, if you attack mom over them, you're probably going to get more of the same.
Yeah.
Right? Because instinctively it's like, oh, that bothers you? Okay, let me do more of it. That's how a lot of people are. So what I said to Dad is like, what you were talking about just now, the solution to this is build your own world. Cool.
Right.
If mom's house is unclean, make sure your house is clean.
Yeah.
Mom's house has no food, stock your house with food.
Like that.
Yeah,
they
they don't have their own bedroom at mom's house.
They'll always gravitate to where the better food is.
The food is a big one. We're living proof of that. But, even like, they don't have their own room at mom's house. Okay, give them their own room at your house, or, whatever things that you feel are inadequate, instead of trying to call mom on the carpet over those things, just do the opposite in your world, and the children will naturally gravitate to the more stable, consistent environment.
Right. Or you could just file an RFO and go before the court, file a motion and ask that those things be weighed and that you get more time. There are two problems with that. One being that you might not win.
Right.
And what if you don't win, and then they have to spend more time in the messiness.
Or you empower the other parent because you tried to go call them on these things and you didn't win, and then they're like, see, you can't do anything to me.
Yeah, and the other thing
It
is,
emboldens them.
anytime, it says another biblical quote, somebody never goes to war unless they count the cost.
Right.
You should never go to war unless you count the costs. And in this case, the cost is what's left of your co-parenting relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And kids can sense it. They can sense when you're upset about the other parent.
Yeah, we have had Thomas's children ask questions at different periods where things were tense between us and their mother, and they didn't know, because to mom's credit, she doesn't discuss that stuff with your kids, and neither do we. But when they were younger, there was a couple different instances where they could feel that something was going on that wasn't right, Right. And I don't, the weird thing about it is, you say you might not win. Well, let's say you do win.
Yeah.
Well, what does that even look like? Because what's the court supposed to do?
Right.
It's not like they can come in on a daily basis and monitor mom's household or dad's household. There's really no, like I said, unless there's evidence of frank abuse, it's really hard for something to rise to a level that there would be any sort of ongoing monitoring,
right.
With it. It's,
right.
It's interesting because, we've had clients that have been told things like, well, could you get more parenting time? Probably, but the children they're not going to totally eliminate the children going into that world because there's not that level of abuse. And so then a lot of times what happens is the children's time in that world becomes more difficult because now you've caused anxiety in the other parent, and they're more, they're more difficult to deal with for the children on the parenting time.
Oddly, as an attorney, I'm not a huge fan of litigation, especially in co-parenting situations. If it's really bad, then we'll have some suggestions later about how to do this.
So I want to give one more example. This one's pretty extreme. So, I was working with some. I'm always hesitant to say whatever. I don't want people to be able to figure out anybody I'm talking about.
10,000 years ago.
Yeah, but I've had a situation where the child is very much being put in the middle over. They're being sort of parentified. And again, this is a child that's like 9, 10. I feel like 9, 10, 11, 12, like right in that window is where we start seeing a lot of these problems, because when they're really young, they're too oblivious.
What do you mean?
You can't really coach them on where they want to be or whatever. And so I have one situation where I have a parent who has a little bit more parenting time than the other parent. It's not huge. Yeah. And so the child came back from the other parent's house saying they want a schedule that's quote unquote fair, that's equal and that's fair. Yeah. And it's like a child doesn't use that word.
Fair to whom?
Yes.
Fair to the other parent? Is that?
I guess
that
was the implication. Yes, yes. And so the parent that wants the more fair parenting schedule has sort of coached the child, I guess, for lack of a better word, into, whether intentional or not, I don't know that it's intentional coaching, but still has coached the child into discussing with the other parent that the child wants a fair schedule.
Right. Yes, we must be fair always.
Yes,
because again, we want the child to learn fairness.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to divide everything in half and make sure that you share your lunch or your
fair's
dessert.
a dad word, by the way.
Oh, it is not.
It is too. I hate to say that, but
you are 90% a liar. And
of the time when we hear that word, it's a dad word.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I think
that's because y'all are unfair. There's no fairness. It's not fair.
I mean, there's no fairness in life. I don't know. I think as a mom, you've had to just sacrifice so much from the birth of the child on that it's like, yeah, it's not fair. It's never going to be fair. And nobody can ever make it fair for me. I'm the one that has to sacrifice because I'm the mother and that's my role. I just don't think we think of it in those terms. We're more concerned about how can I protect the kid? What's going on with my child? How's this impacting them? That's really, I think, more mom type concerns.
Right.
But fair is usually a word we hear out of dad.
Yeah, fair is a word we are, and we see the parentification that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
I was going to ask you what you meant by that term, but I see that mostly in moms, where children are parentified. In other words, that they are placed in the role of caretaker of their parents' feelings and of their craziness.
Right.
And it's the gals.
Yeah, well, in this situation, it is not. This child is responsible for dad makes the child responsible for his emotional state by, I think, I don't know dad, I got to say that, I don't know him, but I believe it's through, like emotional withholding, you know, it's not that he's...
Oh, that's not fair.
It's not that he's sitting down having this conversation with the 9-year-old. It's just that he's very subtly giving his attention, taking away his attention, doing things.
He's being emotionally manipulative.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, that's not good. That's never good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes that parent will, oh God, if it will fall apart emotionally at the transition. We had that situation one time years ago where mom just became unglued emotionally at the transition and couldn't bear to part with the child, and that really put those particular children, this was several years ago, on that put them in the middle for sure.
Yeah, I mean, she clung to them, she cried, like it was so extreme that when dad was relaying it to me, I thought, he's got to be exaggerating. Like, really, who's that nuts? Like, he's got to be exaggerating.
Well, I met her a couple times in court.
Yes. But I actually went and observed and witnessed it from afar.
That excrement comes to mind.
Yeah. And it was really bad. It was, I thought, oh my goodness, these children are going through this huge emotional upheaval every time they transition from mom to dad.
Right.
It was just, I couldn't even believe that somebody would be selfish enough to even put their children through that.
Yeah.
Why would I want my children feeling upset and feeling all those things when they go with the other parent? I want them to go, have fun, relax.
And they were aligned with her.
Yeah. And when your kids go
in a very unhealthy, sick way.
Yes.
They were aligned with her.
Yes. But when your kids, because they felt responsible for her emotions.
Right.
That's why. Not because they disliked going with their dad.
Right. Exactly.
It was because they felt bad that they were leaving her because of the way she reacted.
Right.
And I will tell you something, that when my kids would go with their dad, or when Thomas's kids would go with their mom, it's like, oh, I get time to do it. We didn't ever sit around and chew our fingernails about, and again, there were things going on in the other homes that we didn't agree with. It's not that everything was just all sunshine and rainbows. It definitely wasn't. But you have to learn how to turn your focus and enjoy that downtime and not obsess over what's going on in the other home or what the kids are doing or how they're being talked to or whatever the issue is.
Right. And ultimately, I think the high level of difficulty comes from our own weakness, our own interpersonal weaknesses.
Right.
So one of the things that we have to do as adults is try to shield our kids from our mental illness.
Yeah.
We
all have something.
Yeah. I'm not saying mental illness in the clinical sense, but
right.
Some people are sarcastic and some people are bullying and some people are passive aggressive and
right.
I
tend to be a little OCD. I want to control everything.
So you don't want to inflict that on your kids.
Right.
You want to get healthy outside of the context of your relationship. So.
Right. So let me ask you this: what if you have these situations and the other parent is putting your kids in the middle and parentifying them and all those things, what do you do?
Well, one of the practical things is something we always suggest, which is that we get them in with a therapist.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is my number one thing.
Right, because a therapist doesn't have a dog in the fight.
Right.
Or, hopefully. With some exceptions.
Right.
But the child sometimes needs a neutral that they can express their own feelings to.
Right.
If my kids come to me with their negative feelings about mom,
right.
I'm between a rock and a hard place. I can't really talk to them about that.
Right.
But court orders and everything.
Right.
But they can tell the therapist, and that gives you an out as well. You can say, that sounds really difficult, honey. Maybe you should talk about that with your therapist.
Right. Yeah. And I think the other thing you have to be careful of as a parent is you have to, a lot of times people will go, oh, well, I don't talk to the child about it. You can't talk to the child about anything. They shouldn't know if you have court going on. They shouldn't know if you're having a disagreement with the other parent. They shouldn't know if you're negotiating a schedule change. They shouldn't know any of those things. Yeah. That's different than saying, like at one point, Thomas's kids told their mom, well, we feel really shifted back and forth a lot and we don't like it. Something along those lines. Like we get there, we get settled, and we feel like it's time to go back. And so their mom suggested to us that we did a 1 week on, week off rotation. We extended it to a 2 week. But getting the children's point of view is not the same thing as engaging them in conversation about the situation with the other parent.
Right. Yeah, you got to avoid kibitzing with them.
Right.
It's so tempting.
Well, and what happens is this little window will get cracked, is the way I like to describe it. And our tendency is to want to just open that window wide. Like right. I give the example sometimes of one of Thomas's sons when he was about 11 or 12, and he came into the room and he said, Tammy, why is mommy so mad at you guys?
Yeah.
And we were in the middle of a court thing, and he didn't know that, again, because we don't talk to him about it, and neither does she, but he knew enough to know something was wrong. And your tendency as the parent your response to be, well, why? What did she say? Yeah. Or why? What did she tell you? Or why? What did you observe? And parents think, well, I'm not talking to him about it. He's the one that said it to me. But you have to be the adult and shut that window.
Yeah.
You can't pry into that and try to get information based on the child saying something like that.
Talk to me.
Right. And my response to him was just, you know what? I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm sure that mom will get over it, and we both love you. We all love you, and everything's fine. And he said, okay, and he went back to playing and he went out of the room. But I think that it's
I'm sorry, son, but your mother is a monkey's butt.
Right. Or like I said, most parents' tendency is to want to know, well, why? What do you know?
Right.
And it's just not good. And I will tell you that if you're in this situation where you're listening to this and going, oh, holy cow, I'm guilty of some of this, let me tell you that the best thing to do is to start right now correcting those behaviors.
Yeah.
Because
get some coaching.
Right. The coaching, I think, is very helpful. A lot of times I sit down with clients and we go through the messages between them and the other parent, and we talk about, how would we change this? What would have been a better response? How can you, address it more neutrally and all those kinds of things? Because really, if the other parent has all of these communications from you where you're doing this, I think it does increase your risk of having your parenting time decrease.
That's true.
Because like Thomas said, the court wants us to support each other as co-parents, and they don't want you attacking each other.
Yes, that's true.
So, therapy would be number one. Coaching would be number two. The third thing that I would say is it is really good if you have a lot of conflict with the other parent to use some sort of messaging app for co-parents, like the Talking Parents, Our Family Wizard. Try to set a time each day that you're checking the messages so that it's not like a constant barrage. But it does help if you have the type of situation where somebody's sending text to your phone in the middle of the day and you're at work, and then you get all upset and you're trying to figure out how to deal with it and all that kind of thing. That will help create a barrier between the two worlds. And then you touched on this when you were talking about therapy, but I think you just have to shut your kids down and not engage in it.
Yeah.
If your kids would come sometimes and say, well, I'm upset about this, that, or the other thing that's going on at mommy's house. Right. And when they were younger, we would just say, wow, I'm sorry you're upset about that. And then, okay, what should we make for dinner?
Right. Yeah.
You have to redirect them.
Right. And you do have to pay a little bit of attention to the emotion.
Right. You have to acknowledge it.
Otherwise, they will persist.
Right. Or they'll feel like you don't care about their feelings. Right. And it's not that you don't care about their feelings. It's just that you're powerless to do anything about it. And engaging in that conversation with them is only going to harm them.
Right.
So any parting words?
Any parting words? Well, this is not easy.
Right.
Family life is not easy under the best of circumstances.
True.
But it requires a high level of maturity and emotional intelligence. And sometimes we need people that can see us from the outside, that can help us to see where we're going off the rails on this.
And it can be learned. This can be learned. I mean, I wouldn't have a coaching practice if this couldn't be learned. So it definitely can.
Right.
All right. So thanks for joining us today. If you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you get notified as new videos come out. If you're listening to the podcast, again, please rate and review us and subscribe so you get notified as the episodes come out each week. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira. For more information, visit www.divorceuniversityonline.com.